Hello, so my name is Niko Elomaa. I'm working as a software lead for Philips Radiation Oncology Helsinki, which is one unit that is part of the Philips Precision Diagnostic Solutions. Not going to our very large organization much more deeply because that would eat up the whole half an hour. But our radiation oncology, or RADONC as we call it, is a three-site unit working globally. Let's see if the slide changes. Yes, working globally. We are residing physically in Vantaa, our unit in Finland, and now due to COVID, mostly working remotely. Although some operations in the labs are on site still because you cannot take the MRI scanner home, at least not very easily. So yeah, I'm working as a software group lead, like I said. But we have plenty of other functions in our R&D. We are responsible of several products. Part of them are hardware, part of them are software. Most of them are more like system products. Everybody has in common that they are used in treating cancer, usually cancer with radiation treatment. So from other like treatment modalities like chemotherapy or operations or something like that, we are focusing on this radiotherapy track. And other units are in Gainesville, Florida, US, and then we are having a common sister site in Bangalore, India. So our RADONC operations are divided between these three sites, relatively equal in size, 100-ish people in each site. And our site is an R&D site. We don't do any manufacturing at Vantaa. Some, like, how should I say, support operations for logistics and research and so on. So we might do some prototypes, but not actually any like manufactured devices, no production. And we have a long history in MR scanners. This is bit about me. This is actually my second time I'm working for Philips. I started 3 years ago. Before that, I was employed by KONE in elevator or people flow business. Actually, there we met with Marjukka first time discussing about API strategies and possibilities to invoke third parties in ecosystem for people flow and so on. And that was surely interesting. And I think, interestingly, it's a bit of a topic also today, how to enable third parties through APIs to extend your offering and so on. Before my 15 years of KONE, I was working in this very same building, although it had a different label that time. It wasn't called Philips yet, but let's not go too deep into the history. But yeah, 3 years then working as a software developer for magnetic resonance scanners, both the console software side that is used to initiate the scan and also the real-time side to acquire actually the signals that are then constructed for images. Given a kind of insight. And after 15 years in people flow business, I found myself back in the same building with very many familiar faces. Glad to meet them again. But yeah, there are other functions besides software. Producing medical devices are needing very big variety in skills. So quality and regulations, which is kind of connecting your events topic today, mechanics, electronics, radio frequency design, understanding of physics to design and the magnetic resonance imaging device correctly, clinical experience for like clinical understanding that we are like creating the right thing, fulfilling the right user needs for treatments and preparations with our requirements, and that we then implement in R&D. So it's like not just software department, although I'm from there, so I'm mostly coming from software side. So I'm kind of, how should I say, I try to be a little bit careful when I'm talking about clinical subjects or regulatory subjects or something like that, because that's not fully my line of expertise. But yeah, you cannot work in this business by accumulating a tiny bit of information anyway, no matter what you do in any role. So we are like about 90 people in Vantaa, 30-ish are doing something with software. We are using scaled agile framework for facilitating our agile work. So people are working in Scrum teams, and then we are having these increment plannings every 5 sprints to kind of adjust the direction and so on. Yeah, we are having multiple different technologies for the products we do. Some are based on web technologies, like almost like a full stack in consumer side, Python backend, heavily REST API connected, Angular fronts in web area and so on. Some are like C++ and C#. Closer you get the imaging, the more, how should I say, traditional the tooling becomes. Then we are having algorithm development, which we are really proud of. We have created a medical device that utilizes machine learning and deep learning for synthesizing CT-like images. A bit more about that later, but there we are utilizing Python and various libraries for machine learning implementation. Sorry, I cannot go very deep in details because obviously we don't have any NDAs and this is a public space, so I need to little bit just stay on the scratching the surface level and so on. Yes, let's change the slide. So we are having a big portfolio of products actually, and very diverse products considering that our unit is not too large. We are working on one side in creating a platform so that the magnetic resonance imaging scanners of Philips can be utilized in radiotherapy treatments. And those are like system products comprising of both hardware side, actually integrations from third-party vendors like these positioning devices for radiotherapy and so on. And then also software. So that's very much like system view. Then part of the products like this OR is purely a hardware thing, but it's a rather interesting thing. It enables intra-operation imaging with MR. So basically, usually in brain operation, patient can be moved with this very specific trolley system from operation theater to magnetic imaging scanner and back, so that inside single operations, surgeons can consult MR images to see that, okay, are we going to the right direction and so on, so that during one operation, for example, if it's a tumor case, all the tumor can be removed at once and so on, resulting much better results. Then we are working also with our partner Elekta. We have created the Philips magnetic resonance scanner that's actually integrated to Elekta's radiotherapy treatment device. It's sold by Elekta under name Elekta Unity, but there is a Philips logo, very tiny, but it is there. And actually all this expertise in creating that MRI scanner, both the mechanical designs, RF electronics, clinical system, whatever actually comes from our Radonk Vantaa unit. Obviously, we are utilizing other like Philips diagnostic imaging components as much as we can, but the expertise to do so is in our R&D, and that's something that I feel proud about, to have this privilege of working with so many other skilled professionals from other fields. It really keeps the work days very interesting. Then more like pure software products. IntelliSpace Radiation Oncology, which is a workflow product. Jokingly, I call it a Jira for RT departments, but it does more, and it's like a specific tool to facilitate efficient RT workflow planning. Then MRCAT, which is actually an algorithmic product. This now illustrates the prostate case with auto contouring. What it does, it synthesizes CT, so like computer tomography images from MR images, so reducing the need of imaging modular imaging varieties in hospitals. A bit more about that later, but this is a special case because our latest release utilizes machine learning, and that's done in-house. Another thing that I feel really proud of our expertise and depth of knowledge, that we have a released medical product that utilizes machine learning. I've seen very many slides about machine learning in general and AI and its promise in medical and other fields, but I haven't seen yet very many other products. But yeah, big portfolio of different, very diverse things. So keeping life interesting in variety of tech stacks and like variety of products too, from pure hardware to pure software. Then about our mission, cancer is a cruel, horrible disease. And we are working here in the area that kind of starts from in mid of diagnosis, when then there is a decision that, okay, radiotherapy works best on this case. That's kind of the starting point where our solutions are used by RT departments, and then they are extended to this treatment side also. Our radon department doesn't do solutions for home care or so on, or for other modalities for treatment, but we focus solely on this RT. And so, and about the radiation therapy, the workflow from patient point of view, and also thinking about the whole clinic, is actually longer than anyone expects if one doesn't work in the field, and more complex than anyone expects. And there are multiple spots where different experts are reviewing data, adding data, accepting plans, doing quality checks, so that everybody can be assured that, okay, right dose is hitting the right target and so on. And that's requiring multitude of systems. And we like to view it this way, that on this axis, there are these sort of spots that operation is done. Then there are obviously waiting times in between. If there is a imaging on one day and then someone else needs to make a plan based on those images, it happens perhaps later on that day or next or so on. Then there are appointments with the patient for so-called simulation, which means that if using our products, then patient is running through position simulation in treatment position with then tattoo markings done in that situation to verify that the disease is treatable on that position, and also patient can, for example, extend the arms or hold breath or something like that during the treatment. And from there to contouring, approval of contours, so actually metadata over the image stacks for various organs that are needed in planning, creation of the plan, so how to treat, which dose of radiation is actually given from which direction to the patient to accumulate the toxic dose to the cancer treated area, and then minimize the dose elsewhere to the healthy tissue to reduce the side effects, so on. And this actually requires a large team that is working on these spots. But then we want also to optimize this flow, so to reduce these waiting times, because that actually has a very profound effect on like treatment resolution and results, depending on whether the treatment can be started 2 weeks earlier or later, and so on. So there is a lot of promise also in between these dots. But basically, yeah, our mission is to kind of provide state-of-the-art tools for these different steps in the radiotherapy planning workflow, reduce this sort of uncertainty, both in time and also like in, how should I say, in subject matter, create plans with the better accuracy, know that the positioning of the patient is accurate from step to step, from visit to visit, and so on. But also then reduce these times that are not adding value and actually can only make the disease worse. It never helps. Also, patients are going through very, very rough times. It's easier for them if we can provide them an experience that optimizes the number of visits they need to do to the clinic, and overall make the process as smooth and that it ever can be. Okay, about our products. Try to be a little bit concise here because otherwise we are going to run out of time. So this is an example, how do we utilize Philips MR from diagnostic side to this RT specific area. There are differences in requirements that if MR is for diagnostic purposes, for example, imaging knee or other joints or something like that, then for RT, there are different needs. For example, positioning accuracy needs to be much higher, because wherever you or whatever position you are imaging at any stage of that workflow, you need to be able to repeat that very accurately to keep the therapy on track. And so, yeah, so here we are utilizing the diagnostic MR and applying, how should I say, auxiliary devices to make it appropriate for radiotherapy treatment. And here you can see something that illustrates also the value and, how should I say, our core mission inside this MR knowledge pool. On the left side, you can see the CT image taken from X-ray from the pelvis of the patient, and the same image split. And this the right part is done with magnetic resonance imaging. I'm not a clinical expert, but I would know which image I rather use in planning the treatment to the soft tissue problems, left or right. Left, you can see the bone very accurately in place and so on, but all the soft tissue is basically same gray, to me at least, without any clinical eye. But here you can start to very easily to make difference about different organs and so on. So that's something that we really are promoting, that if we can utilize more MR in planning of the treatments, the better quality plans there will be. Then about positioning, these are examples of various imaging coils and positioning devices, because that's kind of, how should I say, the core of the RT, repeat the position very accurately. Then example from our diagnostic side, what innovations Philips is having. The latest generations of MR machines are actually reducing the need of helium rather drastically, from 1,500 liters to 7 liters, which helps in installation a lot and helps to bring the maintenance cost down, because helium all the time is getting more and more expensive. Okay, back to the RT workflow and examples, how we are helping with algorithms to reduce steps in the patient's path from diagnosis to treatment. So with this MRCAT that we are able to utilize to synthesize the CT images from MR, if that can be used for the whole treatment path, then patient can skip the CT imaging altogether. CT-like images are anyway needed in dose calculation phase. But if we can synthesize the needed images directly from MR images, that skips other imaging modality altogether, and actually very much labor-intensive registration, which is a RT term, meaning to infuse 2 images into the one coming from MR scanner and other coming from CT scanner. So this helps both the clinic to drive down the cost of the treatment and be able to treat more patients with the same time and same facility, and also then more comfort for the patient, because there are less visits and less wait time during the course of the treatment. And so on, yes. Then this is about our MRCAT latest release for anatomy brain. So we are doing the MR only simulation. So that's the simulation step anyway done for the patient to simulate that can the patient achieve the treatment position and acquire latest images about the disease, and also surrounding the tissue to facilitate the radiotherapy plan creation then for treatment. But here actually with our MRCAT product, utilizing the machine learning, we can actually create synthetic CT images. This looks like it comes from real CT scanner, but actually it's coming from MR scanner and then clever algorithms. So then the same image can be used to create the dose plan for radio treatment. And then for delineation, doctors can use the MR image with superior soft tissue contrast. So this is kind of, how should I say, best of the both worlds, because then for dose planning, you have a very much CT image, even if it's synthetic, but then the geometric accuracy is actually the same because it comes from the same session. There are no distortions that are coming from two different devices, and the unification of the data before the plan can be made. So we are utilizing the machine learning algorithm here. So basically we have been training the algorithm with comparable MR scans and CT scans from patients, and running through the necessary QA to know that yes, it really produces CT-like results so that it can be used in further planning. Here we are using the model that the AI doesn't continue learning at the field, so we do the training in-house, and then kind of the settings are locked, so that because then we can control the quality. Maybe that's something that's very interesting for the future, and maybe for automation and CI/CD and DevOps, that what if there would be a learning medical systems in the field? How do we test them before release? And so connecting to the day's agenda today. So we are doing the training, and then we can get the CT image back. And we've been creating this, both the algorithm development and the software, like the productization software around it in-house in our unit at Vantaa. Then examples of our MR scanner knowledge. We've been doing the integration with our partner Elekta. So there is a, here you can see this like MR scanner built inside the radiotherapy treatment device, so that then the treatment is actually given while patient can be simultaneously under MR scan to provide extremely accurate positioning information right up to date, and also then control that there are no like position errors or patient doesn't move too much during the treatment. And this is giving actually rather good results in treatment. A lot of opportunities to create, how should I say, tighter plans, because we can be really assured what we are treating and so on. Then about this, our Jira for RT. These steps are really like, there are many users, many steps in the way, and in current organizations, sometimes the data transmission between the application is still manual. I've seen a paper-based radiotherapy planning card that is actually traveling between the buildings of the hospital in mail trolley. So overnight, it goes then to the next department for the next step. And we like to make this more efficient so that we can cut the no value adding times in between, and keep the personnel of the RT department really knowledgeable that, okay, hey, I'm now expected to do the plan. Okay, now I can review the next stage for the patient, so that the flow of these different steps for each patient is as fluent as it ever can be. Here is actually some reference data about effect of this length of the planning of the treatment from diagnosis to the first treatment session. It clearly shows that it actually has effect to success of the treatment, and actually chances of survival are better if the treatment can be started as soon as possible after the diagnostics. So even if it's, how should I say, just a workflow application, it has a very big effect to the patient's well-being and the efficiency of the clinic. And also here, backing up to the previous slide, we can see that there are many solutions, part of them coming from our Philips portfolio. Of course, we would like to sell all and everything, but this is a very complex world, and sometimes clinics are having solutions from different vendors. So this is a place where we are very, very curious about APIs, thinking of ecosystem, exposing our APIs so that that other companies working in the same space can utilize integration to get value out of this improved planning stream for radiotherapy. So maybe that's an API angle that would be nice to discuss some other day. So with this IntelliSpace radiation oncology, we want to kind of manage this complexity of the workflow, have visual and this sort of, how should I say, systematic approach in this process of planning, improve the efficiency, cut down the wait times, and so on, and then see that we have the traceability, the data, who did the decision, why is there any additional data that needed to be taken into account in the next step, and so on. So cutting down from diagnosis to treatment as short as possible to help the patient. Okay, let's skip through this OR solution rather quickly. So this is basically medical hardware product that facilitates the patient removal temporarily from operating theater into the MRI scanner with special scanner room near the operation theater, images, and then back to continue the operation. Actually, head cut open literally during the imaging. Very much value for actual surgery. Okay, then to conclude my presentation part, this kind of so far told that what we are already doing and didn't so go too deep, for example, to the software tooling or so on because of the lack of NDAs. But this very, how should I say, generic slide represents that the things that I'm very curious about, that where we could utilize more and more. We already do something on this field, but where we could go deeper and utilize even more this sort of CI/CD DevOps tooling that are created in other fields. So what we are actually curious to implement is CI/CD for medical device. And okay, the D for deployment actually in our medical device case, of course, doesn't mean deploying to the production to the hospitals, but it means to deploy to the test environment that is kind of virtualized hospital. So here, really the focus points for us and points of interests that I would like to learn more from other participants of this workshop is actually how to utilize the sort of, how should I say, classic build pipeline toolings so that we can use them more efficiently in medical setting. Okay, for medical device, you need to have the official verification steps. Can we utilize automation increasingly for verification to cut down the verification times and also increase the sort of iterative development principles for medical devices as well? How could we utilize automation in creating the documentation that is needed for medical device compliance automatically while we are creating other release artifacts, binaries themselves and installation packages? Could we create more and more documentation, for example, verification results? For those of you who work in the medical field, you probably know that it's really heavy document to create and so on. So could we use automation there? Also then medical specialty, if you are doing medical devices, is the tool validation. Anything that has to do with creation of the software is a software tool, and there needs to be tracing and validation and acceptance process for that. Could we utilize CI/CD pipelines to kind of self-validate itself so that it could present a proof to be compliant when creating medical devices? Also then third-party dependencies, all the libraries that are packed with the product. Could we better keep track of them and potential security vulnerabilities, for example? And also then when releasing a system like medical product, like this Elekta Unity or this MRCAT, there are, how should I say, traditional waterfallish gate models that needs to be applied for various stages where approvals and compliance related activities needs to be done. Could we utilize the CI/CD and DevOps principles to bring in simultaneously very iterative software development track to this world of medical devices?
Excellent questions. And final words, yes, that was what I was calculating on.
So yeah, that's our world and a little bit about what we are curious to learn more about. So very much thanks for you to listening me, and any questions or answers, probably Marjukka is cutting us short for the next presenter, but then I'm participating to the panel discussion later. So should we save the questions there, or is there time now?
The questions there, and if you have any immediate stuff for Niko, then you're happy to put it into the chat, and maybe Niko has time to answer them there, or we'll take them up in the panel.